Hello, 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 and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. And this is a show where we make brand new homebrew every single week based on prompts that we get from our listeners. And this week we were tasked with making a subclass, specifically a wizard subclass, which... correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but I don't think we've done before?
You have not done it yet.
Okay, I have not.
I did my first one last week.
That's right, yes, you did. Man, how time flies. So you made a wizard subclass of cotton candy last time around.
The confectioner, yes.
Indeed.
Yep.
But I have yet to make a wizard for this show. And we were tasked specifically with making a wizard that focuses around healing, which is a thing that does not exist in the game.
Correct.
There are healing subclasses for sorcerer and for warlock.
Warlock, yeah.
Which are kind of the other two that I think generally are thought of as like, okay, you're a caster, but you have really not a lot of access, if any, to healing.
Yeah.
At least bards and druids who are also full casters get access to some healing, even if they're not nearly as potent as something like a cleric.
Yeah, this was a strange build for me. I spent most of my week this week just trying to think of the starting point. Where is the entry to this type of idea? And I just before we got onto recording today, I think you said it very well, that there must be a reason why this avenue doesn't exist already for wizards, because it was a difficult go at it this week. This morning I put in my final two features. It was a very last minute type of deal. Also a strange combination of core class features, because there are not a lot for the wizard.
Right, yeah.
Basically, spellcasting is what you have.
Right.
A strange combination of the core class features with the subclass progression, which caps at 14. There's no high-level ringer feature towards the ending of this class progression. So whereas a sorcerer... You scale all the way up to 18. You have a lot of features like the innate sorcery and meta magic that can be siphoned into different healing factors. Obviously, warlock, extreme amounts of flexibility with your invocations and pact magic and mystic arcanum. The wizard has none of that. The wizard starts out with a vast amount of spell casting. And you get up to level 5, and then you don't do anything again until you get your epic boon at 19. So it's just strange. It's not a class that's built for a natural healing progression.
Right. I mean, there's so many things going on there, right? I think of wizard as the class that the very most is not defined by the subclass.
Right.
Almost at all, right? You can look at some classes and you really have no inherent defining characteristics until you get that subclass, and then it's like, yes, here's the core character concept is here. Warlock is huge for that, right? Because it's so tied to backstory, so tied to the narrative piece of it. But wizard, there are some really iconic features within the subclass stuff. You think about things like portents. For the diviner, you think about things like the careful spell for the evoker, but you have so few subclass features. They are by and large not extremely powerful.
Right.
For the most part, most wizard subclass features are more ribbons than they are rocks.
Yeah.
And most of them also have one of those features dedicated almost exclusively to just giving you a better ability to add spells to your spell book. Sometimes it's spells of a certain kind. Sometimes it's certain prepared spells list sort of changes. But it's it's all about sort of boosting up that already existing versatility, which is how you define your wizards. It's entirely defined by what spells you take.
Yep.
And that's your spell casting is more powerful. You have more access to it than any other class. So you are every time you level up and add spells to your spellbook and explore the world and add spells to your spellbook, you are increasingly adding more definition to your wizard.
Yeah. 100%. I think there are certain reaches that you have to go to truly make it a worthwhile healing subclass, because I think there's a big difference between a subclass that has healing properties and a subclass that is geared towards the act of healing. And plenty of wizards can heal. All wizards have the capacity to restore hit points to other characters. To have a specific set of subclass features just manufactured for healing is much more different, and it does not feel wizard-like.
You don't have so many of the interesting conventions of something like a warlock, which gets a limited spell list that the subclasses expand on. The subclasses give you access to spells that you can choose from that are broader, but more hyper-specific to your subclass. And wizards don't have that. None of the wizards are like, hey, normal wizards don't get access to abjuration spells, but abjurers do. Like, you also get it. It just, they get that benefit of you can also have a ward of hit points that you pop up when you cast an abjuration spell. So finding something that like rides that line that's like tying it to the spell casting, but like not making it a healing spell. I thought what you said was really right on the money, that it needs to feel like a worthwhile healer. There are so many like other options for playing a healing class in the game that feel really cool and feel really useful and like lean into what the class does really strongly as well. What is going to be the thing that makes you choose this healing subclass over a different healing subclass or a different healing class?
It made me think back to when we made our armor-bound warlocks. And actually, across this week, I went back and listened to that episode because it felt so similar to the roadblocks that I was hitting that week when we made those, and we both ended up coming to roughly the same conclusion that an armor-based warlock makes much less sense than a couple levels in warlock and then multiclassing to paladin. So if you want to be a wizard and have the flexibility of your spellcasting, take 5 levels in cleric and then become a wizard, or a couple levels in druid and then become a wizard, because it just doesn't it makes much more sense to branch out into other places than to stay the course and have a more difficult time doing the thing that you want to do.
And I understand, like, to a degree, you're a little less powerful if you're leaning into a multi-ability dependent sort of multi-classing. Going from wizard to a couple dips into druid or a couple dips into cleric does mean you now are like, oh, well, I've got wisdom spells now, and that doesn't feel as much like it falls in line. But then, like, there's artificer healing. Yeah. It's more limited, but it's there. They do have access to some healing spells. I think maybe that's where my biggest issue comes from, is that like everything I was making was both not feeling like a wizard and also not feeling like it was a very effective healer.
Yeah. It was tough.
It's a very tough one. I did come up with some stuff, and like you said, you made some changes this morning. I also did, but in an entirely different direction.
I came up with 2 ideas for separate subclasses that I stashed away in my document for sure, that I'm strangely more excited for than this. I was like upset. Like on Wednesday, I was upset because I had this idea and I was like, oh, well, maybe that doesn't apply to this prompt at all. And I have to go with the subclass that I like decidedly less than this, and I want to keep going on this, but I can't. So I have to
Sometimes,
have this ready.
Yeah. Sometimes, the best ideas come out of like working on something that you're less excited about, but eventually you get there.
Right.
However you get to the destination, it's all good. I would love to hear about this very cool idea while you present to me your less exciting idea, though.
Great. Yeah. So where I found myself this week, I felt much like my armor warlock, which ended up not being a physical armor warlock at all. If you'd like to go back and listen to that armor-based warlock episode, that's episode 36. Go back and listen to that. It's a very good episode. I did not follow the prompt 100%, and Dan was less than impressed with his own creation, but I think it was a good episode just as kind of a thought experiment in general. And I think I was in a similar headspace this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to lean heavily into the narrative aspect of this subclass to kind of make up for the fact that just a wizard that had access to healing spells felt lazy and uninteresting. I don't know that anybody would pick that, because you're not picking a wizard based on just that. So I had to add some shine somewhere else. So if you would open your document, I went way off into left field, and I made the medium wizard.
I like the design on this. I gotta say, your design work has been impeccable the last handful of weeks.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so this is the medium. I don't know if this lands, but it connected in my head, so I'm just gonna go into it with maybe the less introduction, the better. So this is the medium. For many, the memories of those lost to time can bring forth a wave of comfort. Knowing a loved one is watching you from the other side brings a sense of emotional healing, as a blanket warmed by the fire may revive the winter wanderer. As a medium wizard, you aim to use your intelligence to look past the mortal realms and assist others' fractured hearts and minds. You've committed yourself to sitting with strangers in times of loss, as well as communicating with the spirits who might make them feel whole again. Being a medium requires a set of tools that you procure when you choose this path. Firstly, you gain an expansion to your spell book. This extra space is used to hold the names of creatures you have helped cross into death or communicated with after their passing. You also choose a token of remembrance, honoring someone or something that you have lost. This token acts as your tether to the other side. So starting at level 3, we have the Veiled Spellbook. Typically, spellbooks for wizards are said to have 100 pages for you to copy down texts, ancient tomes, things like that, into your own language for use as prepared spells later.
I think I fully didn't know that.
Oh, really?
I think I fully had never heard that 100 number before.
Maybe it's an
I don't know
update in
how.
2024. I don't know. I don't know if
Maybe.
it's ever been designated before, but it definitely is in the 2024 wizard.
I would absolutely not put it past me to just have never noticed that before. There's a lot of blind spots that I have that are just very strange.
It's a lot of text in this game. You're bound to miss
sure is.
tiny
Too
details
much,
here and there.
arguably.
Yeah. So this at level 3 is called the Veiled Spellbook. Your spellbook acts as a written bond to those you have helped, containing the names of friendly spirits. It can hold a number of names equal to your wizard level. Those spirits will assist you in helping others as repayment. The following spells are added to your spellbook for free at the corresponding levels. Now here I have a very large table of spells that are granted. Okay. So typical wizards that are connected to the schools of magic, are granted new spells to be added to their spell books for free anytime they add a level of spell slot, like a new level of spell slot is accrued. So this follows that pattern. It just designates the spells for you. Mm-hmm. So you're gaining the same amount of spells for free. You just are not choosing them in this case. So at 3rd level, you add Cure Wounds and Healing Spirit. At 5th level, you add Mass Healing Word. At 7th, Aura of Life. At 9th, Greater Restoration. At 11th, Heal. At 13th, Conjure Celestial. At 15th, Holy Aura. And at 17th, Mass Heal. So those are added to your spellbook for free at those designated levels. So that is the continuation of your spellbook. Also at level 3, you gain the Token of the Lost feature. Your token compels the spirits to aid you and your companions. As long as your token is on your person, your maximum hit point total increases by 2 times the number of names in your Veiled spellbook, up to your wizard level. If there's a corpse within 30 feet of you, you can use an action to present your token and communicate with them. If they're willing, you can add their name to your Veiled spellbook. Then, once you have names in your book, you can use an action to choose a creature within 30 feet of you. You release a spirit to defend them, granting the chosen creature temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus your wizard level, and erasing the name from your Veiled spellbook. So spirits are entering and exiting your book at a cyclical rate. So you don't just garner hundreds of names. You can only have up to your wizard level amount of names, and you're always, in theory, you are always collecting spirits and shooting them back out to help your allies. At least that's the thought. Hopefully it would actually work like that. I don't really know. At level 6, we have the Seance feature. When you begin a short rest, you can use your Arcane Recovery feature to instead hold a Seance, which takes 1 hour to complete. You can choose to include a number of other creatures up to your Intelligence modifier. All participants must remain within 30 feet of you for the duration. Once the short rest is complete, you can add a number of names to your Veiled spellbook equal to the number of creatures that participated in your Seance, and the maximum hit points of all participants, not including yourself, increases by your wizard level. This increase lasts until you complete a long rest, and you can't conduct a Seance again for 1d4 days. So you're sacrificing getting spell slots back, because you can only use that once per day. But instead, you are gaining spirits for free, and you're buffing your allies. Now we move on to level 10. This is called Empowered Spirits. When you grant temporary hit points to a creature other than yourself with your Token of the Lost feature, you can release more than one spirit up to your Intelligence modifier. For each additional name erased above 1, the temporary hit points granted increases by 1d10. And at level 14, this is called Semi-Permanence. When you release a spirit to help another creature, roll a d20. If the result is 16 or higher, the name of the spirit remains in your Veiled spellbook. So there's a 25% chance that you can reuse the spirit again in the future, anytime you release it. And that's it.
I know you're not super excited about that. I do think this is pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've landed on one really good thing here, which is expanding the spell list into those specific healing spells is really, obviously, that's going to increase the healing capability a lot. And so, the other features not necessarily doing, quote, healing sort of is probably correct there in that case. I hesitated to do the same thing, just like give granted spells, because that's not really something that wizards do. I know. That's not really something that other wizard subclasses have, like, granted spells like that. So I hesitated to do that, but I think, seeing it written this way, and especially as it ties to, this narrative connection, it feels really interesting and correct. I wonder if there is a way, and maybe I'm just overcomplicating it. I'm wondering if there's a way to expand this outside of just healing, but like access to other spells depending on what names you have. Right? Like,
I was so close to just, because I was wavering between mostly druid spells or mostly cleric spells, and I ended up with a combination of both, kind of a healthy mix of both. I felt like I was competing less with clerics and druids and more with the celestial warlock and the divine soul sorcerer. I really didn't want to step on those two subclasses because they're already very popular. They're established. Why would you choose the wizard when you could just be the warlock or the sorcerer?
Right.
So I really did not want to add the full cleric spell list. Because then that kind of like, it really opens it up to, well, I'm a wizard. I'm not going to take the healing spells. That's not my job as the wizard. If I have the cleric spell list available to me, I'm going to take Temple of the Gods or what, I'm going to go totally in a different direction when the supreme arcane caster, now has access to all of these cool high-level spells. So I think this maybe was the lesser of two evils, because it kind of steps on free choice that a lot of wizards have. Any of the subclasses that are under spell schools just say, it's easier for you to cast evocation spells, so go and choose more of those, I guess. This really kind of eliminates that part, that kind of precedent that's set for a lot of wizard subclasses. But then you think about like the warcaster wizard or the war magic wizard and the blade singing wizard that break that. And I thought, well, maybe it's not that bad to break away from the precedent if I give some heavy narrative reason to do so. Right. Like, you are choosing this path very purposefully. You have, as a wizard, decided, no, I'm not going to be an abjurer. I'm not going to be a necromancer. My job is to just help other people grieve. I'm going to be the one selfless wizard out of 10 that just goes and sacrifices a bunch of firepower to just kind of help other people. And I think there is a small niche for players like that in some parties. It's not very big. Not many players are going to choose this, but I think maybe 1 in 100 will be like, oh, yeah, I could see being a medium with a wizard's spellcasting capability. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that the token and like the name benefit is actually really interesting, and I think presents a really fascinating play style choice to the wizard player, because the more names you have in your spell book, then you have more max HP.
Yep.
But you lose that functionality of also being able to grant temporary HP around, right? So you're playing back and forth with that idea of like, do I want to make myself more beefy because I'm a little squishy? Or like, is it more beneficial for this person to have these 10 HP or like, stuff like that. I mean, I guess it's not terrible for that to be an action. I consider for a minute, like, maybe it should be a bonus action to grant the temp HP. But since temp HP are not time limited, I think that actually is fine, right? You could, a smart wizard player will know to drop this before you get into a bad situation.
Right.
And not after. They might not use it in combat, but you could definitely like use this before combat a lot.
Right.
You can just be dropping these all around. You're like, okay, I've got a lot of names right now. And so everybody's getting an extra D10 temp HP. And I still have a handful of names that make me a little beefier.
One thing I really wanted to focus on with this was scaling. I think one pitfall that the wizard has typically is they do not scale well as far as subclasses fitting into the base class. Obviously, you get your spell casting at the typical levels. That scales fine. Wizards are not underpowered by any means.
No.
But as far as general features go for wizards, scaling has never felt very important in the published subclasses. It just doesn't show up very much at all. So I thought, if I am going to take away that flexibility of choosing your own spells, I would like to make it worth it in the fact that even past level 14, you're still continuously benefiting from these features.
Yeah. And I think they fit the brief in that like they shouldn't be overpowered.
Right.
There's plenty of other classes that can grant temporary hit points at a much more regular and rapid pace than this can. But like that's okay. Similarly, I think the max HP bonus on the Seance is fun, provides again that same sort of like narrative choice for the player to like decide when it's most advantageous to use it, and it's not always going to be the right move.
Right.
So I think that's wise. Level 10 and 14 features, mine are very similar in this regard, is that like in most subclasses for wizards especially, like the level 10 and 14 features usually are pretty unremarkable. But consider that at level 10 and level 14 you have access to like, you have beefy spellcasting at that point.
Big magic.
Your subclass features are not going to be exciting at that level, and that's just that's just a fact.
Nor should they be.
So they kind of just like beefing up the previous features in a way that
Yeah.
feels very natural, and that this does exactly that, you know? Like, hey, use the thing that you
early. Yeah. And then bring them
use these
up
things
with-
more.
Yeah.
They're more effective when you use them, and you can use them more. That's the whole thing. I mean, all told, I think this is a very fun and cool idea. I feel like it rides a line that like doesn't already exist. I feel like it like it plays around with something that's somewhat similar to like a spirits bard, but isn't doing exactly the same thing. It's like a healing sorcerer or a healing warlock, but it's also different. I think overall it lands the brief. The only thing I would maybe say is just because the later features don't really match up to, quote, a healing wizard.
Yeah.
I would say maybe when coming back to this, let go of that a little bit and change the granted spell list a little bit to play a little bit more with like life and death. Something like Speak with Dead feels like it fits very naturally as like a granted spell here.
I thought about Speak with Dead. I thought about Gentle Repose.
Things like that are like we're like
protecting the dead.
Maybe less about healing always. Some healing, yes, but also like, you know, covering more of the process of life to death and that transfer.
Yeah. I'm hoping upon review this kind of has the same life cycle as my photosynthetic sorcerer, where at the beginning it was very like absorption based to meet the brief, and it has now evolved into a sunlight and plant based creature, which it wasn't initially. So I think this has room to grow into this like crossing of the veil, life and death, grief processing manager wizard. That doesn't necessarily meet this brief, but is probably its final form.
Yeah, there's something very cool there for sure that I would be really interested in seeing. So I think the bones of this are actually quite good for a wizard subclass. It's a tough one to make.
Well, what about you? What have you come up with for today?
So I had so many ideas. I ran through like everything that was like, okay, how can we define healing? Well, we can define healing as like actually restoring hit points, sure, but maybe we can find a way, because I didn't want to be like, oh, let's just grant it cleric spells. That's not where I wanted to go. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, we could give it a pool of dice to heal people with. Oh, well, that feels also a little bit too much like the warlock, so we're not going to do that. It's nothing was hitting on the original idea, so I thought outside the box of like how else can we think about healing? Can we think about temporary HP? Can we think about restoring single use features? And so I thought for a while about like how can we make something useful with a wizard that can help restore maybe spell slots or maybe restore class features. But I went through for a while and I was like, I don't know. It just never made sense. It was like, what are you doing? Are you expending your spell slots to give other people spell slots? That doesn't make sense. That's a worse use of your own spell slots than you just casting a thing. Things like hit dice, like restoring spent hit dice, which is like also an interesting idea, I think. But like,
Yeah.
I also went back and looked in the 2024 rules, and actually they changed it. I don't know if you knew this, Michael, but I just looked again to double check, and they removed the thing that only granted you half of your total number of hit dice every time you finish a long rest. Now it explicitly states in the book that when you finish a long rest, you recover all expended hit dice. Not half your total.
Yeah.
That idea kind of had to be scrapped then, because it's like, oh, well, if you just get all your hit dice back, then like a wizard who can help you restore them isn't that useful.
Right.
Right. So that kind of went out the window too. And then I thought about conditions, and I thought about, oh, conditions are a thing that, like, you know, there are some spells that can take care of conditions, and maybe if we don't want to grant those spells, maybe we can find another way for this wizard to, like, help people prevent conditions. I ended up making basically a kind of disappointing mishmash.
Okay.
And I'm not super stoked on it, but the whole idea I came around to was like, what if we just make a wizard who's like focused on just resting, taking it easy, you know, making sure your batteries are charged. So you can open up your document and you'll find on the first page here is the wizard subclass, the School of Respite.
Nice.
It is rare to find a wizard who is not consumed with grand ambitions to master the elements or divine the deepest secrets of the universe. But there are some whose concerns are much smaller. Small fluctuations in magical energy can lead to larger rifts. Individual monstrous creatures drawn to the magical world can grow and multiply into an invasion. And minor maladies, magical or otherwise, can spread like wildfire. Some wizards choose to focus on these roots, drawing them out like weeds and hoping to slowly mend the nature of the weave and the world back toward the vision they hope to achieve. So, level 3, you get the quick thinking trait, which allows you to, once per long rest, you can cast a level 1+ wizard spell from your spellbook that you do not have prepared, as though you do have it prepared.
Nice.
So you just like, I needed this. I will pretend that I had it prepared. Just making your rests a little more easy on yourself. You can know that you've got some contingency plan there.
Yeah.
Level 3, you also get the preventative aura. So you can use a bonus action to emit an invisible 10-foot emanation that originates from you and lasts for 1 minute. You and your allies in the emanation have advantage on saving throws to resist or end conditions imposed by spells or magical effects. Additionally, if a condition imposed by a spell or magical effect allows a target to repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, you and your allies in the emanation can repeat the saving throw at the start of your turns instead.
I like that a lot. Nice.
Yeah, I think that is... It's one of the things that I feel like just goes into the document. Like, I don't think this subclass is very good on its face. I think that idea of, like, something that allows you to, like, repeatable saving throws at the start instead of the end of your turn is a good idea.
Tack it on to something else. Yep.
Honestly, it could just be a magic item, and that might be the best option for it.
Right.
Then at level 6, we get the Mending Rest. So during a short rest, you can expend a wizard spell slot and target a number of willing creatures within 30 feet of you equal to the level of the spell slot expended plus 1. Each creature gains one of the following options in addition to its normal short rest benefits, and each creature can choose which benefit it wants. Either the creature restores one use of a class feature that normally recharges only on a long rest. The creature can regain expended spell slots equal to half the slot level you expended when using this feature, rounded down to a minimum of 1. Or the creature can reroll any 1s or 2s rolled on hit dice that it spends during this short rest. So it can either opt for get some spell slots back, get a single-use feature back, or get a little bit of extra healing when we take that short rest. The higher level spell slot you expend, obviously, the less power you might have later on, but you're hopefully, banking on everybody else being a little more prepared means that you don't have to be. And then very similar to yours, the level 10 and 14 kind of just beef up the previous ones. At level 10, your preventative aura extends to 20 feet and affects all conditions not just conditions caused by spells or magical effects.
Yeah. That's
And then at level 14, you get restorative rest. At level 14, you and all allied creatures within 30 feet of you can end any conditions affecting you other than exhaustion when you complete a short rest. So just get rid of anything. Incentive to complete a short rest. I consider doing something kind of like Catnap that's like, you can take a short rest, but you don't have to take so much time. But like,
right.
it's a spell.
Yeah.
Take it if you want it. It's a spell. See, that's the thing that I kept running into is it like, well, this is a spell. This idea that I have here, it's a spell.
Yeah.
You can take it if you want it.
Yeah.
Because wizards can take it.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, all of these are good features. You know, like I would love to have any of these features.
It's just underwhelming
on my character.
It's just not very exciting. You know, it's not a very high concept situation, and I really liked my other concept better. I just had a really hard time landing it. I'm going to show you the thing on the second page here because this is the thing that I want to present just because I like it better. And there were a lot of ideas that I had for this wizard. Yes, there's a second page.
What?
There's a second page, a bonus subclass, because I had so many ideas through the course of making this. There was like, I like this better as additions to a thing that I made in the past. And so I went back and I retooled a thing that I made in the past, and I'm going to present it here. Because this is a fighter subclass. This was originally called the Sawbones. I custom made it for a player of mine who wanted to play like a halfway healer, but like had already played a cleric in the last campaign and was like not necessarily vibing with like going full healer, but wanted to be like, you know, I'll still take care of my friends, but like I want to do something a little bit different. So we went with a fighter. So the idea of this is I renamed it the Medic. You have trained yourself in the science of medicine. The medic learns everything they can about the anatomy of mortals and monsters alike and uses it to heal their allies and hit their enemies where it hurts most. Back alley doctors, battlefield medics, mad scientists, and other practitioners of all things biological can be counted among these professionals. So at level 3, you get the basic stuff of medical training. You gain proficiency in medicine and survival.
Makes sense.
You also get combat medicine. So you gain a specialized set of surgeon's tools with which you can aid your injured allies. As a bonus action, you can expend a number of your own hit dice up to your intelligence modifier to target one creature you can touch within 5 feet of you and restore HP to that creature equal to the number rolled. Alternately, you can spend 1 hit die to cure a creature of the blinded, deafened, paralyzed, or poisoned condition. Additionally, you restore a number of your own hit point dice equal to half your fighter level, rounded down when you complete a short rest.
Ooh. Okay.
Which maybe I should do when you start a short rest, or maybe I'm trying to figure that out, because now that I'm thinking like, well, wait, what if you spend hit dice on a short rest? You could just spend that many for free, which I guess is fine. Why wouldn't you? Sure.
Right.
That's fine. I'm actually not mad at it. Then at level 7, you get physiological study. As a bonus action, you can make a medicine check against a creature you can see within 30 feet, using the table below to determine your DC. You make this check with advantage if the creature is bloodied. If you succeed, you learn 2 pieces of information, either max HP, damage vulnerabilities, damage resistances, and immunities, or condition immunities. And the DCs are as follows. For a humanoid and a beast, it's a DC 12. For giant and undead, it's a 14. For fey, monstrosity, and plant, it's a DC 16. For constructs, dragons, elementals, and oozes, it's an 18. And aberrations, celestials, and fiends, it is a 20. So kind of the further away from a human or like natural you get, the harder it is to determine the physiology. I also should put in a stipulation here that if you fail, you cannot make a check against the same creature for like some number of time, or just make it a limited use thing somehow else, because you shouldn't be able to do it every turn. That's too much. Biological mastery at level 10, you have advantage on Constitution saving throws, and you're immune to disease and the poisoned condition. Easy.
Nice. Yeah.
Level 15, you get the expert surgeon feature. Your healing is especially effective on the critically injured. Whenever you heal a creature who is at 0 HP using your combat medicine feature, that creature heals the maximum amount. So you don't even bother rolling if they are at 0 HP. You just give them all the hit points. And then at level 18, you get the War Doctor feature. All allied creatures within 60 feet of you, including you, require 4 death saving throw failures to die rather than 3.
Nice. Yeah.
So you just have a little extra time to get to them and bring them back up.
That's a great fighter capstone.
Yeah, it's a little more of a supporty fighter. She had a really good time when she played the earlier version of this, and it was not too dissimilar. But I like this character a lot. And yeah, I figured I would include it because a lot of the ideas that are in this were the kinds of ideas that I wanted to put into the wizard, but then I was like, they don't make sense here. They don't make sense.
Right.
Oh, well, the physiological study maybe makes sense.
I think that's the closest one.
Yeah.
Everything else decidedly is a help to a martial character.
Yes.
But I like that you included this. This is a cool subclass. I agree with you. I like this better than the wizard.
Yeah. I'm glad you agree.
It just has more direction, right? Like the story makes sense. Whereas the wizard, it feels like the wizard is like, oh yeah, this is a wizard that heals. These are healing features, It's just, it was just a hard thing to land. So I feel like all of the peripheral ideas I had around this prompt were better than the actual idea I came up with, which is fine. It's one of the things that happens when we do this. Yeah. It happens. Yeah. And when we come back for updates, this might be 5 items. Yeah, exactly. Or items and feats or a subclass for a different class. You never know. Well, with this one finally put to bed, Michael, shall we roll for what we're going to make next week? I think so. I rolled last time. So I am going to pull up our big table of prompts. This is a D20 rollable table that Dan and I keep, full of prompts that we gain from you, the listeners, from each other, from our friends, from other people throughout the TTRPG community. And it is made up of a wide assortment of things: creatures, subclasses, items, game mechanics, character options. If you have something you'd like to listen to Dan and I create, please get a hold of us. You can email us at collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com, or you can see us over at the Patreon. That's patreon.com/collegeofcreationpod. You can join at the free tier. Listen to all of the episodes that we have made so far. We are up to episode 57, which is crazy to think about. But you can also have access to all of the documents that we've made over on Patreon. Yeah, we'd love some more prompts. Definitely can always use more. Yeah. All right, Michael, I'm going to roll. Here we go. That is an 11. An 11. We're journeying back to subclasses again. An 11 is a fighter subclass based around being afraid. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Fighter subclass based around being afraid. What is going on? Last week, we said something made out of cotton candy. Yeah. Who knows what was going to happen. I assumed we were just going to come with monsters and maybe items. And you came with a subclass for a wizard. And then we rolled to make a wizard subclass. Yeah. Now, I came today not having been prompted to make a fighter subclass, but I made a fighter subclass, and now we get prompted for a fighter subclass. What's happening? It was meant to be. I guess. Okay. Fighter subclass based around being afraid. Interesting. Yeah. A fighter that's afraid. This is going to be another strange one, because that's a very specific mechanic that's already in the game, right? Frightened is a condition that can be applied. Mm-hmm. So how do you balance being frightened with the narrative implications of being frightened but not really under the condition? Like, I'm just a little bit scared, but not so scared that I have to mechanically move away from something. I have a pretty strong idea, but I think the biggest thing that's going to be the hurdle here is, like, if it's based around being afraid, how do you generate fear? Yeah. Yeah.
Like, as a player who's playing this, you don't want to limit it to like this character is only useful against creatures that can cause the frightened condition. Like, there needs to be a way for you to internally generate a fear effect somehow.
What is the built-in source of fear?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's gonna look like. Let's see. Interesting.
Because it could operate maybe like a barbarian's rage. That almost would have been too easy, right? Your rage just turns to, oh, I'm terrified right now. I'm going to run around the battlefield.
I think I have an idea.
It makes me think of the talismans. The talismans of inner
metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the implications of different emotions.
Yeah.
How can we expand upon fear to be beneficial in battle or in and out of battle, really? Because I don't know. Fighters kind of everything is just combat based, but
mostly there's a couple of fighter subclasses that don't have that. Interesting. Well, I've got some ideas. I think I'm gonna have a good time with this one.
Agreed.
Until then, Michael, it's been a pleasure hearing your ideas today. I'm glad we both got to a place where this prompt, if it didn't make us really excited about the actual thing we made, it made us excited about some things that it gave us ideas for. So that's always good.
Looking to
Until
the future,
next time, Michael, do you have something to say to the people before we say goodbye?
I do have something to say to the people before we say goodbye. As always, Dan, I've been thinking about this actually a lot over the past couple days, so week and a half. I don't know why it's been on my mind, but I think maybe it's because I haven't actually played a live game for a minute. I've had kind of a busy couple months, so I've been playing in our play-by-post game, and I've been running a few short play-by-post text games, but I haven't played face-to-face with other people in a couple months. And when you're playing D&D, whether it's in person or virtually, soak up your time. When you're there, try and stay off of your phone. Try and limit the distractions around you if you can. And let that time with your friends just sink in, because it's such a great time. Sessions aren't very long in the grand scheme of things, maybe 3-4 hours. Longer if you have a long day session or whatever. But use that time to enjoy your company and enjoy the game and enjoy your character. And that's it for today.
Lock in.
Lock in.
That's what we say at one of my tables. Everybody at a certain point, the goofs happen. The friendship happens.
Yeah.
When you get into the actual fantasy of the game, you lock in.
Lock in. Do it.
It's great.
Appreciate your time. Yeah.
It's just a great time with people that you love and care about, and that you also are telling a fun little story with. Yeah. Great stuff. Well, Michael, thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We appreciate you all for listening to this episode of the College of Creation. We will talk to you next time. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.